Erev Tov Rabbi Say. A couple of days ago, actually, I think Shabbos evening, Shabbos morning, somebody came up to me to ask me the following question, which happens every year. This year it's a little bit more complicated because of Erev Pesach falls out on a Shabbos. But we'll get to all of those details in the next couple of days. But somebody asked me the question, because Erev Shabbos falls out, Erev Pesach falls out on a Shabbos, it means that you have a long Chol HaMoed. So people want to be at home for the Sadarim, and then want to go away for Chol HaMoed. Can you go away for Chol HaMoed? Yeah, you can go away for Chol HaMoed. Not too much of a problem going away for Chol HaMoed. The problem is when you go away for Chol HaMoed, what do you do with the Air BNB that you are renting? Can you kasher? What can you kasher, and how can you kasher any of the things that are there? So the first thing to note is that there are two different methods of kashering, primarily. And we spoke about this a day or two ago. And these two methods of kashering, it's important to understand, operate on different principles. The two primary ways of kashering are what we call libun, which is heating something up to the point that it glows. What you would do with an oven, or what you would do with a grill or a griddle, anything that comes in contact with food and it is cooked through direct heat. As opposed to what we refer to as hagala, something that requires boiling water, because that's the way that the flavor got in. So, for example, a pasta pot got flavor through from the pasta to the water into the pot, versus the grill or the pizza stone that got flavor from the pizza directly into the pizza stone through direct heat, meaning it gets hot enough that there's no liquid medium involved; it absorbs that way. In order to kasher the pizza stone, for those that are making Chol Pesach matzah pizza, that will require libun. You need to heat it up to the point that it is very, very hot. And we'll talk about the temperatures in the up and coming days, but it gets heated up to the point that it's very, very hot, and then it is kashered. As opposed to, with regards to the pot, the pot that you're going to be using for pasta, that. I don't know if you want to make Chol Pesach pasta. I haven't yet found a good Chol Pesach pasta, even with all of the newfangled recipes and the kidneys and the non-kidneys and the gebrachs and non-gebrachs. Pasta is pasta. Okay, so in order to clean that up, you would need boiling water in order to kasher that pot. These two methods will both kasher your kli. However, they work on different principles. And it is important to understand the difference between these principles, because this will determine what you can and cannot kasher before Pesach versus what you can kasher on Pesach itself. And we'll go step by step from ha-chamor el hakal, from the heaviest to the lightest. The heaviest form of kashering, which is libun chamor, heating something up to the point that it glows, you can technically and practically do on Pesach itself. Why? Because if I have, for example, a pizza stone that absorbed the flavor of chametz, and I heat up that pizza stone to 900 degrees Fahrenheit, put it in a self-clean oven, at that point in time, any flavor of chametz that is in that pizza stone doesn't exist anymore. What happened to it? It was burnt. It's destroyed. It's finished. It's done. You are never, ever, ever going to discover that again. It's finished because it has been totally burnt up. It's been incinerated. There is no longer the flavor of chametz in that pizza stone. To that end, what you have now done is kashered it. It doesn't have any remnants of any flavor of anything anymore. It's finished. That is libun. If you want to self-clean an oven on Pesach, you can self-clean an oven. Chol HaMoed Pesach, you get to an Air BNB, you want to self-clean the oven, you can self-clean the oven. No problem with that. Because anything that's there, you are going to be able to, in some way or another, incinerate any of the chametz that is in that self-clean oven. No problem with that. This is very different with regards to the pot of pasta, because in order to kasher a pasta pot, what you want to do is remove the flavor that was absorbed from the pasta to the water into the pot. But when you do hagala, you take that pot that had the flavor of pasta in it, and then you put it in a much bigger pot that has boiling water. What happens to the flavor of the pasta? The flavor of the pasta is now not incinerated, it's not burnt, it's not destroyed. It goes from the pot into the water. you've removed it, kabal oy kach palta. The way that it was absorbed is the way that it is going to expel that flavor, which means that that flavor is now going into the big vat of water that you are kashering your pot in. So you have the pot, you put it into a much bigger pot, and that water of the much bigger pot is drawing out the flavor of pasta that is in your pot. What happens to that flavor? It's still there. So why is it a problem, or why is it not a problem? Because we have a principle in halacha called bittul, called nullification. That if I have a small trace amount of flavor in a much larger quantity, our usual assumptions are, for most things, is 60 to 1. There is for sure 60 times more water than flavor of pasta that you are drawing out of your pasta pot. So you're drawing out that flavor, it's going into the water. What happens to the flavor? It's still there, but it's now batal, it's now nullified. And that you can do, for sure, no problem. You can do that up until chametz becomes asr on Erev Pesach. Once the chametz is forbidden, once it's asr on Erev Pesach, not only is it forbidden in the sense that you cannot eat it, you cannot own it, but also it is no longer batal. The principle of bittul no longer applies to chametz. It's not batal b'shishim. The halacha is it's not even batal be'elef, even with 1,000 times more water than the trace flavor of chametz, it's not batal. Which means that you cannot kasher your pasta pot using hagala on Pesach itself. Because what's going to happen is you're going to draw out the flavor of the pasta, it's going to go into the water, and it's still going to be there. And it's going to go from the water back into the pot, because it's not batal. It's just going to stick around. In fact, not only have you not kashered your pot, but what you've done is made the big pot chametz as well. Right? Because chametz is not batal with anything. So if you cook a little bit of chametz in a pot and then you try to kasher that pot in another pot, all that you've done is made the other pot chametzdik. Because there's no bittul. There's no bittul whatsoever. Which is why you cannot kasher anything with hagala on Pesach itself. What comes out from that is that when you get to the Air BNB, if you want to kasher the self-clean oven, no problem, you can kasher the self-clean oven. If you want to kasher the sink, you cannot kasher the sink. Because the sink would require hagala. You want to pour boiling water on it. So the sink becomes a problem. Not only is the sink a problem, but you're going to have a problem with the with any of the pots that they have if you wanted to kasher. There are many cutlery, crockery, knives, whatever, that you might want to kasher. You can't kasher any of that. What about the stovetop? Well, it depends on the kind of stovetop. We'll get there in the next couple of days. So Chavra have already been asking questions about what the din is about which particular stovetops, gas versus electric versus metal versus glass. We'll talk about all of those details. Depending on what kind of stovetop you have, you might have possibilities of kashering versus not kashering. But strictly speaking, anything that you could kasher in the self-clean oven, you're good to go. You are good to go. And every year I tell the Maaseh that one of my Rebbeim Kerem Yavne, Baron Silver Shlita, decided once, he told us when he was in yeshiva, that he figured it would be an easy way of kashering the knives to put the knives in the self-clean oven. He said it kashered it beautifully, it just didn't have a handle at the end of it. I mean, it's very kosher. It'll burn anything that's not like metal. So if you want just a full tang piece of metal sitting in your self-clean oven, Mazel Tov, you're more than welcome to do so. But anything that is put in that self-clean oven is going to become kosher if it exists by the end of it. Not clear that it'll exist. So anything that you can self-clean, anything that you can get up to 900 degrees Fahrenheit and beyond, you're fine with. That you can kasher, because that is incinerating every bit of chametz that's there. But if you are requiring bittul, you can only do that up until shas habir, up until the point in time that you have to destroy your chametz. B'Hashem Yisbarach, to be continued tomorrow.